you drink coffee every day, and maybe you have never really stopped to think about what happens inside your body after each cup. I'm not talking only about that feeling of waking up faster or feeling more alert. I am talking about what happens quietly inside your heart, your arteries, your blood pressure, and your circulation. Because coffee, especially black coffee without sugar, was judged unfairly for many years. A lot of people grew up hearing that it was bad for the heart, bad for blood pressure, and something they should avoid. But more recent science started telling a very different story. And I want to tell you that story in a simple, direct, and balanced way. I am Edu Rodriguez, a pharmacist, biochemist, and health educator. And today I want to talk to you about something that is deeply part of everyday life for millions of people, but still very misunderstood. Black coffee without sugar can absolutely be part of a heart-healthy routine. But there are details that completely change the picture. And those are exactly the details that almost nobody explains. For a long time, coffee had the reputation of being the villain, and that did not happen by chance. Many professionals learned that. Many families repeated that. Many people truly believed that drinking coffee was almost like attacking the heart every single day. The problem is that many older studies mixed together factors that confused the results. People who drank more coffee also tended to smoke more, sleep worse, and carry other unhealthy habits. In the end, coffee took the blame for damage that often came from somewhere else. When researchers started adjusting for those variables more carefully, the story changed. And it changed a lot. Little by little, it became clearer that coffee without sugar, consumed in the right amount and inside a healthier lifestyle, was not the enemy people thought it was. In many cases, it could even be an ally. But for you to understand that, I need to explain something important. Your circulatory system is like a large transportation network. The heart works like a pump. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood out to your tissues. Veins bring it back. And lining the inside of your blood vessels is a very delicate and very important structure called the endothelium. Think of the endothelium as a thin, intelligent protective layer that helps the inner wall of the arteries function properly. When this layer is healthy, blood flows better, inflammation tends to be lower, and the risk of plaque buildup and clot formation tends to be lower too. But when this endothelium suffers from chronic inflammation, high blood sugar, oxidative stress, smoking, inactivity, and poor habits over time, it begins to lose function. That is when the real problems start. Because atherosclerosis, what many people simply call clogged arteries, does not appear overnight. It is built little by little. It is a slow, silent, dangerous process. First comes injury to the endothelium, then inflammation, buildup, hardening, narrowing of the vessel, and by the time the person notices, the problem may already be advanced. That is exactly where black coffee without sugar becomes interesting, because coffee is much more than caffeine. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings around it. Many people reduce coffee to caffeine alone, but a cup of coffee contains hundreds of bioactive compounds. Among them are antioxidant and anti-inflammatory substances that seem to act in a favorable way on vascular health. One of the best studied families of compounds in coffee is chlorogenic acids, and I will explain this in the simplest possible way. Imagine that inside your body there are small daily attacks happening against your cells. Stress, aging, poor food choices, too much sugar, pollution, and inflammation all generate free radicals, which are like tiny chemical sparks. When those sparks accumulate, they damage tissues, favor inflammation, and accelerate wear and tear. Antioxidant compounds help contain part of that process. They do not create miracles, but they help protect cells from repeated aggression. In the case of coffee, these compounds seem to have a particularly interesting role inside the blood vessels, helping to preserve the function of the endothelium. Another very important point is nitric oxide. The name sounds technical, but the function is easy to understand. Nitric oxide helps your arteries relax. It is like a signal telling the vessel, open a little more, let the blood pass more easily, do not stiffen right now. When the body produces this well, circulation tends to work more efficiently. Aging, chronic inflammation, poor food choices, and many other factors can reduce this over time. And some of the compounds in coffee seem to support that endothelial function and this healthier vascular response. That does not mean coffee cures artery disease. It means that inside a healthy routine, it may contribute to a less aggressive vascular environment. There is something else important in this conversation. Coffee also became interesting in studies related to metabolic syndrome. And I want you to pay close attention here, because this affects many people over 50. Metabolic syndrome is that dangerous combination of increased waist size, high blood pressure, changes in blood sugar, poor triglycerides, and greater cardiovascular risk. It is as if the whole body starts operating in a more inflammatory and disease-friendly terrain. In several large observations, moderate coffee consumption appeared associated with a lower risk of this kind of metabolic disruption. Again, this is not permission to overdo it. And it does not mean coffee cancels out bad food, inactivity, and too much sugar. But it does show that coffee can fit into a healthier lifestyle rather than automatically being the villain. Now I need to talk about blood pressure, because this is one of the parts that scares people the most. Yes, caffeine can raise blood pressure temporarily right after consumption, especially in someone who is not used to coffee or who is more sensitive to it. That happens. It is real. But that short-term effect does not tell the whole story. In people who drink coffee regularly, the body tends to adapt a lot. And when we look at the long-term relationship between coffee and blood pressure, the picture becomes much more complex than the old idea of coffee raises blood pressure. End of story. In many people, moderate habitual coffee drinking does not translate into worse cardiovascular health. In some contexts, it even appears associated with better outcomes. But here comes an essential point. Coffee alone never tells the whole story. Sometimes people blame coffee, but the real issue is the sugar, or smoking, or inactivity, or the stuffed cookies they always eat with it, or the poor quality sleep, or the ultra-processed foods throughout the day. Coffee becomes the easiest thing to blame, but it is not always the true problem. And now I come to a decisive part of this video: sugar in coffee. If you want to talk about the possible benefits of coffee for circulation, you have to talk about coffee without sugar. Because when you add sugar to the cup, you start mixing a possible ally with a factor that directly attacks what you wanted to protect. Too much sugar favors blood sugar spikes, inflammation, oxidative stress, insulin resistance, and vascular damage. In other words, you help from one side and sabotage from the other. That is why I insist on this point. We are not talking about just any coffee. We are not talking about coffee with 2 spoonfuls of sugar, or coffee loaded with condensed milk, or coffee always paired with sweets. When we talk about vascular protection, we are talking about plain coffee, or at the very least a real process of reducing sugar over time. And I know this bothers some people, because many truly love sweet coffee. But taste changes. It really does. You do not have to cut everything out overnight. You can reduce it gradually. A little less this week, a little less the next, until your taste buds start recognizing the real flavor of coffee. Many people discover after some time that black coffee actually tastes better. Preparation method also matters. Filtered coffee, the kind made with paper filters, tends to be an interesting option because the filter holds back part of the oily compounds that may not be ideal in excess for some people, especially those with certain cholesterol issues. That does not mean other brewing methods are forbidden. It just means the way coffee is prepared can also enter the conversation. Now I want to be very honest with you. Coffee is not ideal for everyone. Some people are more sensitive to caffeine. People with palpitations, arrhythmias, strong anxiety, major sleep problems, poorly controlled hypertension, or specific health conditions may not do well with coffee, or they may need an individualized approach. So it makes no sense to turn good information into a blind rule. If you drink coffee and notice a racing heart, shaking, discomfort, worsening anxiety, worsening sleep, or a significant rise in blood pressure, that deserves attention. The body speaks, and you need to listen. The amount matters too. When we talk about potential benefits, we are usually talking about moderate intake. Not drinking coffee all day long. Not using coffee like survival fuel. In many studies, something around 2 to 3 cups a day appears to be a reasonable zone for many people. Beyond that, the chances of unwanted effects begin to rise in those who are more sensitive. Another detail that almost nobody respects is timing. Some people drink coffee late in the afternoon or even at night, then complain that sleep is poor, that they wake up exhausted, that their blood pressure is harder to control, or that their anxiety worsened. Poor sleep also damages circulation. So it makes no sense to protect the heart with 1 cup and then damage the night with another. If coffee hurts your sleep, It needs to leave your routine earlier. There is also a part of this discussion that goes beyond biochemistry. For many people, coffee is also ritual, pleasure, memory, affection, pause, and presence. And I think that matters, because health is not only about lab numbers. Health is also about quality of life. Removing a pleasurable habit without real necessity is not always the right decision. The ideal is to adjust, understand, and individualize. If the person can drink black coffee without sugar in moderation, without worsening blood pressure, without harming sleep, and inside a healthy lifestyle, great. That can absolutely be part of life without guilt. But if coffee comes with sugar, excess, processed snacks, inactivity, and poor sleep, then it is not fair to blame the whole problem on the beverage itself. So, in the end, what I want you to remember is this: black coffee without sugar is not automatically the enemy of your heart. In many cases, it can be a habit that fits perfectly well into a long life with healthier circulation. The real problem is usually the excess, the sugar, the wrong context, or the lack of individualization. If you want to start today, I suggest something simple. Look at your cup. Notice how much sugar goes into it. Notice how many times a day you drink coffee. Notice the timing. Notice what you eat with it. Notice how your body reacts. And if needed, talk to your doctor so you can adjust this safely. Because health almost never depends on one single food or one single drink. It depends on the whole picture. And when that whole picture is built well, even your daily coffee can stop being a source of guilt and go back to what it has always been for so many people: a small pleasure that can absolutely fit into a healthy life. If this content made sense to you, subscribe to EDU Health Tips and tell me in the comments, do you already drink your coffee without sugar, or are you still in the process of making that